One last bit of business to get to before we wrap up this debut episode of season 2. And where would we be without a power ranking? It's a new season. It's a new year. We've been highlighting moves and additions and subtractions all off season. So yeah, let's see where things stand. Our first weekly edition of the second annual show, NFL on Fox podcast. Without further ado, the power rankings. A lot of it's going to look similar to how last season ended. Newsflash, that's what we have to go on other than reckless speculation about the offseason. But with so much changing, I do want to highlight a few teams scattered throughout. You know how we do. We'll start down low and move our way toward the top. The bottom 4 teams, like, I'm sorry, Carolina. I'm sorry, Denver. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see these seasons going particularly well. But the first team on the list that I'm genuinely curious about at 28, I will readily acknowledge this is a team, maybe this ages poorly, and we're giving kudos to them. That would be the Washington Commanders, who obviously had a busy offseason with $100 million plus in salary cap to spend. And oh, by the way, they drafted Jaden Daniels out of LSU at number 2 overall. Maybe it's a lazy comparison because it's the same team, but man, doesn't it give you 2012 vibes when the Commanders drafted RG3, not thought of as a particularly good team heading into the season. And then RG3 and Alfred Morris helped the Commanders to the NFC East title. I'm not willing to put division title implications on Washington, but with so much different on this team in Dan Quinn's first year as the head coach, maybe they could be a lot better than we think. I'm worried about the offensive line in front of Jaden, but man, the supporting cast is interesting. You add Austin Eckler to what was already there with Brian Robinson. The receivers are nice. Terry McLaurin, annually underrated. Jahan Dotson. I think this offense can be pretty fun with Cliff Kingsbury calling the plays. Dan Quinn, not the talent that he had in Dallas on defense, at least not yet. Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne is a nice place to start, but I'm not sold on the talent there. We'll see how that goes. Like I said, I don't think particularly highly right now. Maybe we feel vastly different by the time the season is off and rolling. At number 22, this is one of my spicy takes for the year. I'm really proud of it. I hope it ages well. I hope I'm not feeling dumb about it. I've got the Arizona Cardinals all the way up at 22. Still not overly high, but remember, this was a year we were talking about, were they tanking? We were asking ourselves whether they were tanking last year. And I think this is going to be a feisty team. For starters, Kyler Murray, fully healthy. For starters, they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., number 4 overall, the best receiver in this draft class. You add him in with Michael Wilson, Trey McBride at tight end, James Conner still at running back. Drew Petzing's offense was fun last year, and that was when they didn't know what the hell was going on with Josh Dobbs at the beginning of the season. I think this is going to be a really fun offense. They're probably not a very well-rounded team because the defensive talent is still severely lacking. I'm not going to deny that. But Kyler and the offensive talent, I think, is enough for them to be feisty, win some games. If enough stuff goes right, maybe this is a sneaky wildcard team. We'll see how that ages, but that's how I feel. Jumping over the middle class a bit, I do want to take this opportunity at number 9. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. I'm making it my pet cause to remind people that the Buffalo Bills are still pretty good. Yes, they traded Stephon Diggs. Yes, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are gone. Tre'Davious White is gone. I still think there's a lot of talent in Buffalo, headlined by that man, if you're watching, number 17, Josh Allen. When the second best quarterback in the world is on your team, you're going to have a shot regardless. And that's without mentioning the rest of the infrastructure. I low-key like what the Bills have done on offense, just kind of throwing resources at it. People talk about losing Stephon Diggs, and I think they only look at the receiver position. Sure, they need Khalil Shakir or Curtis Samuel to step up. They need Keon Coleman to hit right away. But keep in mind also, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox are still at tight end. James Cook, I feel like a crazy person sometimes reminding people, James Cook had a 1,500-yard season last year. And that was even with some growing pains as a young player. I think he could emerge as one of the better backs in the entire NFL this year. And yes, you still have Josh Allen. Sean McDermott is a defensive guru. The Bills have been a top 5, top 10 defense for the last 5 years. I trust him to keep that rolling. I'm in on the Buffalo Bills. I think a lot of people are writing them off way too soon. At number 7, let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Carmen Vitale mentioned this earlier. I'm definitely not going to say we're sleeping on the Bengals. Joe Burrow is back. Looks like he's throwing lasers again after that wrist injury. The receiver talent speaks for itself. But I am very interested in the Bengals defense. They tried to go youth movement last year. They let Jesse Bates and Von Bell walk out the door. Did not work. And they immediately said, nope, we're fixing that. They brought Von Bell back. And they signed Geno Stone from division rival Baltimore. Bengals actually contributing to losses in Baltimore. Yes, Ravens fans, I can hear you yelling at me. I've got the Bengals ranked over the Ravens last year, even though the Ravens were the number 1 seed in the AFC. I think the Bengals gained and the Ravens lost. Yeah, Derrick Henry is in Baltimore, but there's 3 starters missing on their offensive line. Their defensive coordinator is the head coach in Seattle now. Patrick Queen plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jadeveon Clowney left. It's a lot of loss to offset in Baltimore. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals stand to benefit. I think they're going to be right back where they've been at the top of the AFC North this year. I've got them at 7. Last team I want to take a deep look at, that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Spoiler alert, the top of the league looks awfully similar to the way it finished last year. Kansas City is going to be in the top spot probably forever. Like after last year, what could possibly happen to them that would make you doubt the Kansas City Chiefs? The Niners, the Lions, kind of speaks for itself. Let's talk about the number 4 team, the Philadelphia Eagles. It's going to be interesting to see how this season goes for them because the talent speaks for itself. I had the Eagles ranked 2nd in the league in the spring based on talent alone. Take a team that lost the Super Bowl 2 years ago, started 10-1 last year. You add Saquon Barkley to the mix. You add Bryce Huff to the defense. You draft a couple talented cornerbacks. Look at the Eagles 2 deep and tell me why I shouldn't have them ranked 2nd in the league. The reason I dropped them down to 4 is this feels like a team where what's going on in the meeting room and in the locker room is going to dictate just as much as the talent. The coordinator promotions were a disaster last year. Replacing Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, moving on to head coaching jobs. Nick Sirianni got an F in his coordinator hires last year. How's he going to do this year? Feels like basically a course correction to take Vic Fangio, a legendary defensive coordinator, and Kellen Moore, one of the biggest name offensive coordinators in the league, and plug them in. On paper, sounds great. Both guys have been highly successful at various times in their career. They're both going to have a ton of talent to work with. You won't be able to blame the talent if it doesn't work out in Philadelphia. It's going to be, how does the coaching reach the players? How do the players mesh with each other? There was drama in Philly last year. There's no way around it. I cannot wait to see if they can overcome it, because if the Eagles disappoint, it's not going to be because of the caliber of their roster. Makes for a fascinating wrinkle. And let's be honest, it could make for some really juicy drama in Philly. So highlighting the number 4 team because, truthfully, I think they're more interesting than the top 3 teams because that feels set in stone, at least heading into the season. All right, that does it for the first power ranking. I can't wait to look at this around Thanksgiving and call myself a bunch of names, but that's the name of the game. I'm more than willing to play it. We'll see. We'll see how it goes over the course of the year. That does it for the first one